Hi, guys. Happy Saturday, and welcome to another episode of One on One with Sam Holt. And today's guest is Sara Marshall. She is the staff writer over at Full Press Coverage for the Patriots, and she podcasts over with the guys at Dear Pats Nation podcast. I'm so excited to have you on. We've kind of hit and miss on Twitter and talked back and forth, but now I finally get to meet you.
I know, it was so weird. It's like we were kind of talking before we went live. Like, you kind of know people through Twitter and you talk to them, you communicate, and then we're like, oh, wait, no, like you're Zooming now. And it feels like you've known each other, though. So it's nice that we can finally do this.
Absolutely. I'm just appreciative of you taking the time. So
thank you.
Yeah, we'll jump right into it, as the Pats are your baby, and we will completely unpack this free agency madness. And as the news agencies are saying, Bill went on a spending spree. I think Bill went and did Bill things. Yes. And that's how I'm viewing it. I don't really think it's much of a spending spree. I mean, everyone's got to spend money, right?
Right. Well, and they were sitting at, I think it was like the third most cap space coming into this offseason. So, I mean, what were they going to do? Of course, they had to spend money. So yeah, it's not it shouldn't be shocking at all. It'd be more shocking if they didn't.
Yeah, it'd be really disappointing, I think, for everyone around the league if they just didn't do anything. Or honestly, though, if Bill didn't do anything in free agency, because it's Bill, everyone would be like, oh my God, he knows something that no one else knows. And he's got a whole plan.
Yeah, he's playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers. That line that everyone says, it would just be like that too. Meanwhile, Patriots fans would be like, what's going on? We need improvement.
Yes, please let us know what's going on. So obviously, they signed Cam to one more year. James White is returning. Then they went ahead and decided to get everyone's hearts up and then get us all confused when they went and signed Jonnu Smith and then Hunter Henry back to back. So now they've got back to the two tight end set. It's been a decade since they've had the, amazing power duo of two tight ends as before. But now this is with Cam, still Belichick. What was your reaction when you saw that second tight end slide in?
Well, I was shocked that we got one of them in general. Honestly, of course I was hopeful because the Patriots have been struggling with tight ends pretty much since Gronk left. But even before Gronk wasn't Gronk completely. For sure. We know he's injury prone, unfortunately, but we haven't had the Gronk for a while. And so for the last 2 years, there's been virtually no production on any of the tight ends that we had. So I was excited that they signed Smith. And then I think it was the next day or 2 days later, it was Hunter Henry. And I was like, what is happening? I just was shocked because I was like, these are the two top tight ends. We figure you sign one, you're not getting the other. So I already ruled it out. I was like, Hunter Henry's not coming here. He's going to go somewhere else. So when that happened, I was so excited because, the offense for the Patriots has been not that great the last couple years. So the fact that they signed the two best tight ends, I was like, okay, well, that's a huge improvement already. Yeah. So I was excited. Of course, there is the worry of how is that going to work? Because, I think everyone assumed that they would go to two different teams and that they were going to be one of the top pass catchers for that team. Yeah. So I am excited to hopefully there's, going to be maybe we'll see more of a Hernandez Gronkowski type of stuff. Are they both those players? Not necessarily. But fingers crossed that we can have the same type of production. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be huge. And I completely agree. When the news was that, they got Jonnu Smith, then my next thought was okay, well, I can't wait to see where Hunter Henry lands. Cause like you said, he's going to be the number one wherever he goes. And now you've got two number ones. I mean, easily two number one tight ends that are just going to be splitting it back and forth. And it could end up being a thing where one week is one guy's the big guy and the next week it's another one. But I feel like they're two very different players. I feel like Jonnu Smith is more big guy, big play, big red zone target. And Hunter Henry, I don't feel like we've seen enough of to know entirely what he is.
Yeah, especially with the injuries. So that's a little worrisome. So that's why I kind of like that they also signed Jonnu Smith. I mean, granted, he came first, but I like having the insurance too. So if anything were to happen to one, we have the other. Plus, they did draft two tight ends in the third round last season. Of course, we didn't get to see much of them last year either due to injuries. And then just basically they weren't able to really do anything. So that's nice too. I'd like to see if there's some way that they can help them come up too. Cause then if we have four legit tight ends, that would be so nice. But yeah, I like the attitude though from interviews that they've said, where as of right now, it seems like both Henry and Smith are willing to do whatever. Like they're coming in there with the right type of attitude where, they easily could have gone somewhere else, probably gotten more money, been that top guy.
Mhm.
And I mean, Hunter Henry came in second. So I guess he could have been that person. But the fact that they're already like, we'll block 1 week if that's what we need to do. I'll be the pass catcher if I need to do it. I will do anything that they ask me. I'm like, okay, that's the type of attitude we need, especially with them being the 2 top tight ends that were available.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that I would hope to think that when they're going into a legacy like that with the Patriots, they want to be there because they want to be with the Patriots. They want to be with
Right.
Bill and they want to be in that system. And like you said, be whatever they need them to be. So hopefully, my concern next would be, is Cam ready to have these 2 high-powered targets? Is he going to be able to get them the ball the most efficiently way he can?
I'm super hopeful, especially because his connection with Greg Olsen in Carolina was so great. So I'm hopeful that we can kind of see like a mirror of that.
Mhm.
Because they did do so well in Carolina. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's there. So
Mhm.
I've been someone who's been a supporter of Cam, kind of like a minority as a Patriots fan, being such a big supporter of Cam. I think a lot of things went into last season that affected it. And of course, he didn't play that well. Like, I'm not blind. I know, like, he didn't play that well. So
Mhm.
I'm very hopeful that, those 2 guys can help him be even better. I mean, the offense last year was not great in general. So bringing those 2 in is just a massive improvement. So I'm really hopeful.
Yeah, and I mean, they also got a couple other insurance pieces, I think, in Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar at receiver. So I'm looking at all these pieces, and Julian Edelman's still there, and then you've still got N'Keal Harry, who maybe he could still eventually, hopefully, break out. He was the guy that all of us were hoping would break out last year.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate. Like I was really hopeful for him too. I don't know what exactly happened. I know that there were struggles with Cam at the quarterback. So I don't know if that kind of affected how much N'Keal was like really doing anything.
Mhm.
And then of course we know Tom Brady is not the greatest when it comes to like rookie receivers, so I wasn't surprised that nothing happened in 2019. But yeah, I mean, Cam says that he still believes in N'Keal. He's young. He's got growing to do. I do think that this offseason and even the preseason is going to say a lot, whether or not the team is going to play him a lot or if he's just going to be like a healthy scratch every week.
Mhm.
So we'll see. I mean, there are rumors that Edelman might not be able to play this season either.
Yeah.
So that
Is
would
that
be a
from an
huge hit.
injury or?
Yeah, he had surgery. He only played in 6 games in 2020. I think it was his knee.
Yeah.
And then he's still dealing. He had some surgery, and then he's still dealing with some of the, the aftermath of
Lingering.
that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wasn't sure
So
about him because there was question marks all over the board on him, and I knew that he was out from injury, but I just didn't realize that he was being that slow getting back because he's always been someone that seems to bounce back really well. So that's very concerning.
yeah, and especially his age. He's going to be
Mhm.
34 or 35. So I
Yeah.
assume that if he was coming back anyway, I'm hopeful that he is because I can't lose another like long-term Patriot like this soon. It's too much.
Too much
But
too soon.
yeah, so I'm hopeful that he can come back and maybe in a more limited role. And then the other guys like Jonnu, Hunter Henry, Aguilar, they can all take over. And Jacoby Myers too.
Mhm.
He did really great last year. So I'm hopeful Edelman can come in, do what Edelman does, but maybe just in a limited capacity.
Yeah, well, hopefully, even with that limited capacity, like you said, being able to rely on those other guys to get the job done
Right.
will definitely help. I've got actually a paid question here for us, real quick, from Ross jumping
That's
in, wants to throw us some cash. Really appreciate it, dude. He says this one goes out to our McHomer Sarah from Dear Pats Nation. Cam is Superman. How exciting is the new versatility in the offense with the recent pickups?
Well, shout out to Ross because he's like one of the biggest supporters of Dear Pats Nation, and they call me McHomer because basically because of Cam, and I'm just a homer a lot. But yeah, no, Ross and I are very big supporters of Cam, so yeah, we're really excited. I'm super excited. I'm one of those people that tries to be a very optimistic football fan in general, especially for the Patriots. That's another thing that's very unheard of. And I don't know if it's necessarily unheard of in football, but definitely as a Patriots fan. So yeah, no, I'm really excited. And I think that they added some good pieces that are going to be beneficial to Cam being successful. So as always, I have my fingers crossed. You can't see them, but here they are now.
No,
Fingers
love it.
crossed.
Thanks for that one, Ross. Appreciate you jumping in there. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, we just covered the tight ends, we covered the receivers. not much change is happening with the running backs. Is that concerning for you? Do you still have faith in Damian Harris? I mean, it's nice to have James White back.
Yeah, I love Sony Michel and Damian Harris. I think they did really well. It almost seems like last year Damian Harris kind of taking over the number one running back spot while Sony was injured kind of fueled Sony to go back to his rookie season production, which was amazing because the two of them are like a great 1-2 punch. I was hoping for James White or Rex Burkhead to return, especially because they're great pass catchers too. So having that added dynamic, of course, helps. So I like that James White is back. Still hopeful they'll bring back Rex Burkhead, but he had a pretty bad injury in November, I believe. So it's hard to say if he'll be back, but I'm okay with them. I wouldn't be mad if they brought somebody else in. I know that there were rumors that people were wanting, like Leonard Fournette, but he just re-signed to Tampa. So I don't know what exactly is out there still. But I'm comfortable with those three right now.
Okay, gotcha. So now it sounds like they've pretty much got all the pieces of the puzzle on offense that they need in order to go forward. They've got Cam for sure for another year. And I think that a lot of things that people keep forgetting, even though it feels like it only just happened yesterday. Yes, last year was the year of COVID. There was no preseason. There was no practices that are normal for what we were used to. Everyone was zooming into these practices. So every team was thrown off kilter as a preseason before it. And then I know that Cam did have COVID, and I know that some players have experienced different difficulties in getting back from that. So I'm sure that maybe that played a part of it as well, and him just not feeling 110%. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I assume too, just because when you listen to some of the other players who have had it, even, NBA players, they've said, they either had like a cloudy brain or their stamina. Cam did talk about it a little bit on the I Am Athlete podcast with Brandon Marshall, and he said that he didn't really have any symptoms, but that he kind of felt like a little bit cloudy, but also that he, everything continued on even when he was out. So coming in as a new guy, having to learn a new system, a new playbook, they continued without him. And then he had to try and catch up to them. So it was always like playing catch up. So to me, that made sense. I know that people don't like to give him any benefit of the doubt because there were lots of games and lots of plays where it was like, what are you doing? But I do think that people need to remember too, which I say all the time, he had been injured for a lot of the last 2 seasons before that. And so this was like the first season that he was coming back after having like major shoulder surgery, which I think that kind of played into it too. So, I mean, not to mention the offense was kind of crappy last year. So like he did have some bad moments, but he, I don't know what people were expecting him to do. He wasn't set up for success, unfortunately.
Yeah.
In my opinion, at least.
Yeah, but it also seems like he's got the insurance pieces now in the absolutely gangbusters tight end set that he now has to work with, and the fact that those 2 guys alone do so much for him that I think is going to help him with that success. So then the next part of my question for free agency has to go into the rookies. Now, Patriots are sitting at the 12 spot. No, they're at 15. I can't read numbers. Yeah. I can't read numbers when I write too fast, apparently. Now they're at 15 there. So what's the next piece you're hoping they grab there?
I'm really hoping for a quarterback, which it's very odd going into this draft because the last couple of years it's always been trying to find that offensive piece or, a great defensive piece. You never really had to worry about quarterback. You had Tom Brady. So, it wasn't a worry. But now that they've added so many pieces that were holes last year to this year, I feel like this is the perfect opportunity for them to try and trade up for a quarterback. Although that we discussed it a little bit before we went on, that became a little bit more difficult yesterday. So if there was some way that they're going to stay at 15, I'm still hoping for a quarterback, but only a quarterback that I feel like they truly believe in, not just because there's a quarterback available. But again, there's Jimmy Garoppolo out there. There's still that rumor. So
that's going to float around for a bit, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. That connect simply just because he's a former Patriot, and of course, the rumors that they didn't want to trade him. They wanted to trade Brady. So, it's very interesting.
Gotcha. Well, we'll see what happens draft day and
Right.
what falls to them. But yeah, the thing that happened yesterday with the trades with the Dolphins and the Niners and the Eagles and everyone shifting places, it really felt like an episode out of draft day, didn't it?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I think a lot of people were surprised.
Hmm.
I don't think that people were expecting the Niners to want to move up that far, especially because they have Jimmy.
Hmm.
Yes, Jimmy's injury prone, but I think people forget it was only 2 years ago that he brought them to the Super Bowl. Wasn't single-handedly him, obviously, but you have a younger quarterback. I think he's like 30, so it's
Hmm.
like you still have him for quite a while if you'd like to. Um, it it's weird. Yeah, I don't really know what they're going for. It wasn't surprising that Miami fell off and traded because they don't need a quarterback. I mean, they just drafted Tua.
Yeah.
And then they jumped back into the top 10
I
after that.
know. And that's the thing
So,
that's the weird part is like they're out and then they're back in.
yeah,
And so sticking
I
with
don't
the
know.
AFC.
I
Sorry.
don't know what they're doing. Like I'm assuming that they're probably going to want a receiver or
Yeah.
something to jump back into the top 10, but who knows?
Yeah. Who knows there? I mean, it threw everyone off kilter. I'm still trying to get my feet back underneath me from that. And I think that everyone is trying to just
Yeah.
assess. And there's news dropping today, sticking with the AFC East and going to the Jets, that the Jets are now looking as they're sitting at that 2 spot. I mean, if you see the Niners come up right behind you and you think
Mhm.
they're going for quarterback, they got to
Yeah.
go for quarterback.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people assumed anyway, just because there's been so many rumors floating for probably about a year now about them not being super happy and comfortable with Sam Darnold.
Hmm.
Um, and of course they got a new head coach this year, so he might not be thrilled about the quarterback situation because he signed up to be the head coach but doesn't sign up to keep the team. So
Hmm.
um I mean, they're number 2. You already know that you're basically having anybody at your grasp other than Trevor Lawrence. So it
Yeah.
wouldn't surprise me if they take Zach Wilson. I mean, most assumed that he would probably go in the top 3.
Hmm.
But yeah, if you see the aggression of San Francisco coming up to number 3, you better pick the guy that you really, really want or whoever you think is the best available at number 2, which is basically anybody.
Hmm.
So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
Yeah. And then the offseason moves that the Jets made. So they added Tevin Coleman, Tyler Croft, Corey Davis, what I thought was a very interesting move, and then Keelan Cole. So they're clearly trying to get some pieces of support around what I thought would have been Sam Darnold. And I was like, oh, this is nice. They're finally giving Sam some pieces to play with. And now this, I think it's just like you said, new coach. Just because he
Hmm.
signed up to coach the team doesn't mean he signed up to coach those players.
Right.
Things
Yeah.
are
So
shifting.
yeah, and it's they might try to trade Sam. I mean, there are teams that need quarterbacks. I don't know that anyone be scrambling to take on Sam Darnold, but I think it's it's kind of sad because I feel like he's shown that he can kind of be good. I think that the Jets is just like when you're a fan in the AFC East, you're just kind of like it's the Jets. Like they're just like it's like they're kind of been the joke
Yeah.
of the division for a while. So it would be a little unfortunate for him, but I mean they got to do what they got to do, and maybe Sam will get a shot somewhere else. I don't know, but it doesn't look like it's going too well for him right now.
No, it doesn't look like it's going to be his team
Yeah.
come August, September. It doesn't look like he's going to be calling the shots there. So kind of a bummer for Sam Darnold, but like you said, I don't think any of us are really that surprised. And then on the other side too, with the Bills, I feel like they made a lot of good moves in re-signing some players that they
Hmm.
had, but there wasn't any really big shiny move that they made. They added Emmanuel Sanders, Jacob Hollister, and then just some kind of insurance in Mitchell Trubisky. Like that was I was like, you don't need him.
Yeah, especially when you have Josh Allen and you just went so deep into the playoffs last year. That was a
Yeah.
little surprising.
Yeah.
I definitely would agree. It's insurance. I mean, because anything can happen. I did
Hmm.
like the Emmanuel Sanders trade again or the signing. As a Patriots fan, it alarms me just a little bit because I feel like they did add some, Emmanuel Sanders and Stephon Diggs line on the same play. Like, that's a little scary because they're both very fast.
Hmm.
And Corey Davis was a name that a lot of Patriots fans were liking for the Patriots. So yeah, I think the Bills definitely got a little bit better. Nothing huge, no big splashes in free agency, but I don't think that they really needed it as long as they retained a lot of their key pieces from last year. I mean, they did really well. And it seems like the AFC East is going to run through Buffalo for a few
Yeah.
years now. So
That was gonna be one of my questions too for you. So I think the Bills are still the team to beat. Do you feel
mhm.
like the Patriots with these moves now puts them in the immediate number 2?
It's hard to say because Miami is making a lot of moves too, and Flores seems like he's doing really well as a coach. So it's hard to say because we don't know how Cam, if he's going to be the quarterback, because of course all these rumors with Jimmy and whatnot.
Yeah.
We don't know how well he's going to do with all of these added pieces, which of course, as the Mick Homer name for me, I'm very hopeful that they're going to be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to believe that they're the number 2, but I think that the AFC East for the next handful of years is going to be a lot tougher of a division than people have given them credit for over the last, however many years. I think that they're going to step up and be really good. And it's possible that it's going to be Buffalo, Miami, and New England, duking it out, trying to be that team.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this division became more dense. It's not as one-sided of the whole quadrant as it is. It is a very dense league now, especially with these moves. Dolphins got Will Fuller. They're definitely sticking with Tua after that trade they made yesterday. So that kind of, I think, is good for Tua. Like, it's great to give him that confidence. A young quarterback needs that confidence boost.
Yeah, especially because there were rumors that they, were sitting at number 3 and were thinking about drafting a quarterback. I'm like, that's not going to help the guy that you just drafted last year. And they moved up to draft him last year. So I'm glad to see that for him because I think he played in 9 games last year. He hasn't been given a complete shot yet. So good for Tua. And it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing now that they're at number 6, I think. So
yeah,
we'll see.
They're at 6. Yeah, now the Dolphins are at 6 and now the Eagles are at 12. So, I mean, hopefully the Dolphins can maybe get another good key piece for Tua. But I feel like there's lots of holes still in Miami that need to be filled. So something's going to get addressed in that 6th spot. We will just have to wait and see what that is.
There's lots of good names that could be there at number 6 that aren't quarterbacks. I think a lot of quarterbacks are going to go in the top 5. So again, they're going to have quite a array of people to choose from if they want. Maybe they'll go for tight end Kyle Pitts, or maybe they'll go for a receiver in Jamar Chase. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get into a little bit about how you got to where you're at now in covering the Patriots and your whole NFL history. We were talking a little bit offline. You are football focused kind of gal, not necessarily into the fantasy, which is totally fine. And I totally get your whole analytical point of view. It is such a boon to have and to be able to get that, those good gold nuggets from you. So I appreciate your time on it. But how did you even get started in all of this and jumping into the whole scape?
It's funny because I'm super new to it, actually. I've been a football fan since, I was young. I didn't grow up as a young girl, caring about it necessarily until I was a preteen. But I grew up in Massachusetts until I was 13. And football or basketball or baseball was always on. At my grandparents' house where I spent a lot of time growing up. So it was always something that I was around. I just didn't care about it until I got older. But yeah, once I graduated high school, I didn't have a plan in mind. I was I don't know what I want to do with my life, like a lot of 18-year-olds are. And, I went straight into work. So years passed on. It's been about, 10 years or so. Last year I was okay, COVID's here. Can't work outside of my house right now. So I just tweeted one day saying does anyone have any ideas or can send me in the right direction for something in sports, something that I can do about the Patriots? And I actually received a lot of DMs saying we love your tweets. Would you want to write for us? And I was what? Just based off my tweets? I just tweet my thoughts like a fan. That's all I do. And I had never considered writing. I always liked writing, but it was never something that I was super passionate about. So, I wrote some stuff to see if they liked it, and they did. And I ended up working with full press coverage. So yeah, that started in the end of July of 2020. So super new. Yeah, and then I was able to cover the Patriots for this past season, which was a fantastic first season of covering them because we all know how it ended up being. But I really enjoyed it. I had a weekly column, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to continue doing that as well. And then I got into podcasting with Dear Pats Nation with Ray and Connor just a couple months ago when they ended up leaving Sportscaster. So that's been fun. I do that 3 times a week.
Nice.
And that's more of my fan hat. I feel like when I'm, writing, that's more of my, I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible hat. So that one is it's a little bit more fun because I get to be the Homer that they call me. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
it's
love your
pretty.
takes on there still. Like, I mean, you say that you're coming at it from a fan perspective, but I can hear you've still got a lot of like good analysis going on in the podcast. So that comes through really well.
Oh, thank you. I try as I feel like it's kind of hard to like turn that off, like now that you start writing and you have to cover them from such a different perspective than just being a fan, it's kind of hard to just turn that off because now I'm just always looking at it. And it's funny because my mom and my sister are Patriots fans too. They don't care about it even half as much as I do, but and they just get annoyed with me because this is just how I talk. I'm not just like, oh man, that game was so not fun. I'm just like, no, did you see this player and what he was doing and this play? And they're like, Sarah, we don't care. We just looked at the score. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, but yeah, it's fun.
Love that. No, that's awesome. I mean, I'm very similar in that way. So, and I like you turn it on for podcasting, kind of turn it on for writing. I haven't been writing lately. I was writing a couple of years ago. I'd like to get back into it just because I hadn't had time. But I'm podcasting so much now that it's really just like a switch that you kind of turn on when you're doing football. And then when I'm at the office, it's hard to not have that switch get turned when I hear someone say something about a team, and I'm like, wait.
Yeah.
I know stuff.
I know that's me too. Like sometimes I have to be careful like on Twitter too, because I want to like correct somebody or I want to like interject and just be like, hey, no, like blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, no, I can't do that. Same thing, like just talking about it. It's, living in Arizona, I'm pretty far away from most people who like the same sports teams as I do. So most of my interactions are online or podcasting. So, that does make it a little bit more difficult because most of the time I'm just talking to a computer or, tweeting and just hoping that someone will interact with me. But yeah, it can be difficult to turn it off. Sometimes I feel weird just tweeting like as a fan, like it's almost a little odd.
Yeah, I know. I feel like sometimes I tweet as a fan in the middle of a Steelers game, like you do, like I do on a play and just like yelling the whole game.
Yeah.
And then someone will say something at like that I say that's wrong. It's like, okay, well, I'm allowed to be wrong in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
Like, I'm allowed to be wrong then.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and I think that people forget that just because you cover sports, like you're allowed to still be a fan. Like obviously you are a fan of sports to get into covering sports. So it's like you can't always not be a fan. Like you got into this for a reason. So you're gonna watch a game that's your favorite team and you're gonna react like a fan because that's what we all do. And then if you have to cover it or write it or talk about it, it's like once the game is over, then you're in that mindset. But when you're watching it, like that's what I do too. I'm like yelling at the TV. I like take notes because I'm one of those people that doesn't type. I handwrite all my notes, and I'll be like, "This was bad,"
and
so I'm writing
my language.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Handwritten notes.
Yeah, it's funny because I've talked about it with Ray on Dear Pets Nation. He's like, Sarah, you really need to get into like the 21st century and like typing it on the computer. And I'm like, no, I need to like physically write it. Like I have all my notes right here too. Like I write everything down. It's more organic for me. So I don't know. I like the idea of having something tangible. Yeah. I'm one of those people.
No, same, absolutely same here. And then for me, as I'm writing stuff down, I feel like I'm remembering it faster because I have to write it down a couple times. And it sits better in my head. So I'm totally a fan.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like when I'm typing on the computer, I would rather not have to click between screens. I would rather just be like looking down and then typing, looking down and then typing. Cause I don't know. It's funny for the generation of like us growing up with computers and like smartphones that like we're not more into the digital life. But in that way, no, I need a notebook and a pen.
Yeah. And it's also too distracting. Like if I'm sitting on my computer and I've got a Word doc open, I can also switch to YouTube and start watching tape of like Kyle Pitts because I'm like, everyone says Kyle Pitts is amazing. Let's go see this play.
Or like on my phone. Yeah. Like I'll be checking and doing something. I'll be on Instagram scrolling. Yeah. It would not be good for me.
No, totally. So is there anything new you've got coming up that you'd like to hype up for people to find you at?
Well, I'm hoping to be making my own little like show, like YouTube thing with Dear Pats Nation. Cause I'm only on there 3 times a week. They're live 5 times a week, but I'm on there for Tuesday through Thursday. But I kind of I'm dabbling in some ideas for something for me to either do twice a week or a week right now. So fingers crossed, like look forward to that. Hopefully. Thank you. Trying to come up with ideas for that. I am working on an article right now too. I haven't written in 2 months.
It's good to take time off though.
I mean, Yeah, especially after having to write an article like every week. Like, yeah, it's fun and I enjoyed it, but I'm just like, okay, I need to like be a fan for a little bit, enjoy the off season, digest the 2020 season. So I'm working on something right now about free agency. So that should hopefully, I'm hoping to finish it this weekend. And yeah, so just trying to come up with ideas, trying to keep like interacting with people on Twitter and doing the podcast, just trying to enjoy the things that we have going on right now, because once the draft is here, it's going to be even crazier.
Oh, I know, right? It's like you can see the storm coming, especially after
Mm-hmm.
something that happened like yesterday. You're like, oh, we are
Oh, I
close.
know.
We are
Yeah.
so close to the crazy.
Yeah, and especially the Patriots having so much done in free agency in just those first few days. So I'm excited for the draft, but yeah, I think that we have a lot to prepare for. It's going to be a crazy one.
Yes. Well, we're going to sign off with this last one from Ross, who has just been fantastic in the chat. He says he wants your thoughts on Vanoy being back and Cam's chain snatch.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with what he's talking about, but
I am not. I would like to know.
So last year, I think it was the first game of the season, right? Yeah. The Patriots played in Miami. And after one play, the defense got kind of handsy with Cam, and I believe it was Van Noy and possibly Landon Roberts tried to snatch Cam's chain off, which was very odd because was like, it's the first game, like you don't even know Cam, like I don't understand. And they're both former Patriots at that time, so it was kind of weird. And now Van Noy was just re-signed to the Patriots, so he has to interact with Cam and maybe try to explain himself. He said he was going to apologize and offer to bring him to dinner. Hopefully that's good. I feel like Cam's like a super chill guy, so I don't really see him like holding a grudge. But yeah, it was really weird, and some Patriots fans didn't really like it, weren't too thrilled about him being re-signed. So yeah, hopefully they can just be cool.
And hopefully it can be water under the bridge.
Yeah, especially if it was so long ago. It was like the first week. But yeah, Ross kind of knows how we feel about it. But I'm excited with Van Noy being back. I think he's a great offensive or defensive piece. Sorry. So hopefully it's fine.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine, and he'll do just fine in it. But thanks, guys, everyone, for tuning in. Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time. If you could give everyone your handle so they can follow you.
On Twitter at @SMarshXO.
Perfect. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Guys, if you haven't already, please hit subscribe, like, we really appreciate it, and have a wonderful Saturday. Bye.